Today we are going to see 10 most common Scrum Master interview questions and answers. Question 1. What distinguishes Scrum from Waterfall? The main distinctions are as follows. In Scrum, client input is obtained earlier than in Waterfall, where customer feedback is received at the conclusion of the development cycle. It is simpler to accept new or changing requirements in the Scrum than it is in the Waterfall. Scrum emphasizes collaborative development over a waterfall, which divides the whole development cycle into segments. At any point in time, we may undo the modifications made in Scrum rather than Waterfall. In contrast to Scrum, a test is considered a phase in a waterfall. Question 2. What distinguishes Scrum from the iterative model? A Scrum is merely an iterative approach, but it is an iterative plus incremental model. What are the most significant Agile components? The following are the essential characteristics of Agile. Meetings on a daily basis. Time task boards with CRC, class responsibilities and collaborators, cards. TDD, test-driven development, continuous integration, frequent code reviews, pair programming, automated builds, continuous deployment and delivery, and other techniques are used. Iteration planning meetings are held, and iterative development is carried out. Question 3. What is the distinction between a sprint and an iteration in Scrum? Iteration. It is a phrase used to describe a single development cycle in Agile approaches in general. It is a phrase that is frequently used in iterative and incremental development processes. Sprint. It is used to designate one development cycle or iteration phase in Scrum, a particular Agile process. Sprints are unique to Scrum, and not all iterations are sprints. Question 4. How can you tell whether Agile is working in your team or organization? There are a few clues. Increasing team velocity and continual improvement. An improvement in software quality, less technical debt, fewer bugs, and generally better maintainability. Increased stakeholder engagement in Agile meetings, such as during the sprint demo. Working software is routinely given, weeks rather than months. Question 5. How much time should a Scrum Master anticipate devoting to his or her responsibilities? A Scrum Master should prioritize this job in order to focus on the broader team's advantages. Their workload will change from sprint to sprint based on the team's barriers and difficulties. Newly created teams often require greater Scrum Master time, ranging from 50% to 100%. Whereas experienced Scrum Masters with established well-functioning teams may spend 50% or less time on the Scrum Master position. How many Scrum teams have you managed at one time? This is a popular question. Don't offer that Scrum guidelines state only one Scrum Master per team as your answer. In this new role, you may be required to lead more than one team. Notice the use of the word managed versus led. Scrum Masters do not manage, they lead teams, so be sure to use this word in your response. Your interviewer is likely to be listening very closely. Question 7. What is the objective of user story in Scrum? The interviewer wants to know if you understand user stories and their purpose in Agile software development. Tip number 1, describe a user story. Tip number 2, briefly explain the objective of user stories. In Agile software development, the user story is a tool that describes a feature based on the end user's perspective. Written in natural language, user stories act as boundary objects that facilitate communication and sense-making. In other words, they enable the software development team to understand the system and its context. Question 8. What is scope creep and how would you prevent its occurrence? The interviewer is looking out for the individual who can prevent undesirable happenings such as a scope creep. Tip number 1, define the term scope creep. Tip number 2, state ways you can use to prevent its occurrence. A scope creep occurs when new features whose requirements were not clearly defined at the beginning are added to a product that is being developed. It can be prevented by specifying all the requirements clearly from the start, ensuring to monitor the project progress, and refine the sprint backlog effectively. Question 9. One of the developer does not want to take part in sprint planning meeting. What you will do as Scrum Master? For a Scrum Master, it is important to understand the pulse of the team. If there's a member in your team who takes the meetings as useless, it's time to know why he or she is adopting such a behavior. The focus should be on the behavior rather than the individual. The Scrum Master should try to talk to the team member individually. By asking open-ended questions to find out the reason for not attending the meeting. Certainly, there is a need to understand the cause of this behavior and try to explain the importance of the planning meeting, Scrum ceremonies. In Scrum, each individual is important. It is like wheels of a truck. Any wheel gets de-aligned or malfunction, the complete vehicle suffers. Hence, the need to explain the impact of not having his presence in the planning meeting and its impact on the entire team arises. Even the team can start to feel this imbalance. If it is still not resolved, the Scrum Master can set up a meeting with his reporting manager to talk about the concern and look out for ways to help the team member and the team. Question 10. Why user stories not estimated in man-hours? Estimating in man-hours is one of the most prevalent methods for assessing teamwork. While man-hours are easy to understand, there are a few big disadvantages to this method. Few tasks are hard to estimate precisely. For example, the legacy work. If one team member provides the estimate but another completes the task, the estimate becomes worthless. The time needed to complete a task will vary based on a developer's level of experience. Teams usually misjudge impediments they might face and contemplate only the best-case state. The advantages of estimating user stories and points can be: there is no correlation with the skills and experience of the estimator. Story points do not depend on who is doing the story. As the story points are a measurement of relative sizes, and the size of the story cannot be changed by external pressure, the team members can estimate more accurately. Story points invites collaboration as team behavior becomes prominent over individuals. Using planning poker to estimate story points brings the team together. It acts as a team-building activity as teams share, constructively criticize each other, debate and have fun playing poker cards to come to a consensus on estimates. All the best for your next Scrum Master interview. Don't forget to subscribe and we'll appreciate if you hit like. See you all in next video.